Hello, Gender and Justice learners, and welcome to the Unit 4 overview for our class. Unit 4, we are mid-semester, right? Unit number 4 is weeks 7 and 8, so right in the middle of our 16-week semester. Now is the time to make sure that all of your work has been, any additional work, late work, right, that you're catching up on. Now is a good time to make sure that you're caught up. Now is a good time to just assess and reflect on your progress in my class and, all of your other classes as well. And reach out, please, if you need any assistance at all. So I'm going to take us over to Blackboard and we will go over unit number 4 together. Our home page that has everything you could possibly need on it. All you have to do is scroll. And getting down here to unit number 4 that takes us from October 4th to the 15th. Continuing our learning about feminist abolitionism, now with a focus on transgender and gender non-binary people's experiences within the criminal justice system and the violences that they experience at the hand of the state. State, right, gets used in academic ways to mean nation state, state officials, right? It's a way of referencing organized governmental involvement. So like usual, this is a 2-week unit, so take your time. You can't get 2 weeks worth of work and effort completed in one day, right? So review this, watch this video, and then think about how you want to spread out your time. There's readings with different lengths. There's a few little videos I want you to watch, so there's a lot to process in this particular unit. So again, we're continuing to learn about why feminist abolitionist theory is so important, and in this case, in explicitly identifying trans and non-binary people's experiences of being what's called systems involved, meaning that, they get arrested, your system's involved. You go to jail, you're in the courts, maybe you have to go to prison, you're on parole, right? You are involved in those systems. You're doing, drug rehab, and if you don't do the drug rehab, then you might go back to jail or prison, right? That's what we mean by systems involved. It's a phrase you hear a lot in that world. What's important about this unit is that oftentimes when we talk about abolitionism, usually we really just hear about men, right, and their experiences of violence. Kimberly Crenshaw and others are pointing out how Black women, Black girls are also impacted by violent policing, how Black women and Black girls are at higher risk as not just for physical assault, but sexual assault as well. But in these conversations, we're also missing other groups of people. And so when we talk about transgender people, trans men, trans women, trans folks, and gender non-binary or gender non-conforming or gender queer people, right, all those phrases are phrases that people take on to describe their gender when they don't fit into a gender binary. If you're confused about this, that's okay. There's a short video for you to watch to help catch you up on terms and terminology. And so when we think about how heavily, aggressively binary gendered our world is, it gets even more violent and complex for trans and gender non-binary people. If you are a trans woman and they send you to a men's prison, that is putting you at an incredibly high rate or high risk for various forms of assault or violence. We don't really have space and place for people who don't fit into our really narrow definitions of male and female in our society. And so in the readings and the videos for this unit, right, this is going to expand your ideas of what constitutes gender in society, if that is something that is new to you. And it will teach you about how those people who don't fit into that gender binary are at risk of even higher rates of violence and harm. You will have the opportunity to attend the second extra credit Zoom viewing option. I am 99% sure it's going to work way better than it did the first time. Many thanks to those of you who tried to come the first time and dealt with the technical issues that I was having. So this time we will be watching a documentary called Major. Miss Major, as we call her, is a trans black activist, sex worker rights activist. She is, I mean, she's just a beacon of light. She's hilarious. She's kind. She's like just embodies what fierce advocacy for justice means. So if you want to earn those 2 points of extra credit, you can. It'll be on Friday, October 8th from 1 to 3. As usual, task 2 is asking you to complete another discussion board post. Again, one that I create where I have a bunch of questions or a few questions for you, and then you answer those questions. You can click to launch here or here. It'll bring you to the discussion board general page where you'll see the help forum and then your forum, whichever forum it is. And when you click on it, there will be a unit number 4 thread for you to respond to. Now we're getting into the heart of this unit. So I recognize that some students are not necessarily students who are aware of the gender diversity that exists in the world. You know, you either don't have friends or family who don't necessarily fit into the gender binary, or you haven't had a class yet where we talk about the, you know, awesome gender diversity that exists in the world. So I have an optional read that's from the Sylvia Rivera Law Project, which is actually one of the organizations that is being studied by one of the groups this semester. And they have a Trans 101, and they go through the different terminology, explain how and why certain language is used, you know, explain how we cannot be so genitally obsessed and obsessed with the body, and really, you know, kind of help you understand language. I will also add a video. It's a little bit dated now, but it's a video from the New York City LGBT Center that is really gender basics for service providers that I've used in my other classes. And so that is also something that will be available to you optional. But that way, if you're feeling confused as you're reading our readings, you know, you can go get that background information that you need in order to understand what it is that our scholars and activists are saying. It'll be very helpful to have that, you know, basic knowledge of gender diversity and this understanding that gender goes way beyond this sort of mythical idea of a two-gender model of man and woman, boy and girl, male and female. You know, we need to push our brains beyond that if we haven't already, so we can really dive into learning about how trans, gender non-binary, and genderqueer people experience police harassment and brutality and the violences of incarceration in really specific ways because of their gender identity, gender expression, and also usually race, age, class, and sexuality. First is a short read from the book The Solidarity Struggle. This book is not owned by the John Jay Library, so you'll see I just made it out of my Kindle. So the Solidarity Struggle, How People of Color Succeed and Fail at Showing Up for Each Other in the Fight for Freedom. Like, dang. All I'm asking you to read is the foreword by C.C. McDonald. C.C. McDonald is someone who is now an activist. She is a black trans woman who was systems involved because she was defending herself against violence based on her race and gender identity and gender expression. So this isn't a very long read, but I think it'll really help provide a lot of background to what it is that we're going to be reading in terms of academics. So I'm going to ask you to read a chapter from a book called Are Prisons Obsolete? Note that this is the whole book. I am not asking you to read the whole book. Angela Davis has written tons of books. She appreciates that this book is available for people to read for free online. All I'm asking you to read is the first chapter, the introduction, that's called Prison Reform or Prison Abolition. I've seen, so you know, skip the acknowledgments here, and you'll start here on page 9, right, the introduction. I've seen how many of you are struggling to understand how and why reforms aren't enough, how there is actually an alternative to reforms besides just not doing anything. And so I want you to read through this. She came out with this a few years ago, but it really is sort of canon. It's something that many people refer to. She's very well known. And so I want you to just read this first chapter. Next is a bit of a longer read from legal scholar Dean Spade. It comes from a book of his that he wrote based on his own research. The book is called Normal Life, Administrative Violence, Critical Trans Politics, and the Limits of the Law. Administrative violence, what does that even mean? And so I want you to, this is actually the conclusion, and I want you to read through it and figure out, what does he mean by this is a protest, not a parade? What does he mean by administrative violence? What does he mean by critical trans politics, right? What are the limits of the law, and what do we do instead, right? So again, I love a subheading here, community solutions to violence that do not rely on police. Ooh, that sounds like abolitionism, right? So, questions that we can answer. Love it, love it. So read through the conclusion and see if you can figure out, the main points, right? Which can be helpful because some of them are actually numbered for you. Another one, Human Resources Administration Advocacy in New York City. What? Ooh, look, the Sylvia Rivera Law Project again, one of the organizations that some of you are studying this semester. Prison letter writing projects, which I'll talk about for us actually at the end of this semester. I usually do a holiday letter writing for incarcerated LGBTQ people or incarcerated sex workers. I do that usually when we're meeting together, so I haven't quite figured out the best way to do that being separated, but I'll definitely share the information. One thing I want you to remember is that you are reading scholarship. This is research. This is systemic thought. This is not opinion. This is not, you think the blue is the better color, I think purple's the better color, and we just agree to disagree. No. Scholarship is really about building ideas and understandings, and for us, building ideas and understandings of how the social world works, right? Many people in fields like gender studies, Africana studies, Black studies, ethnic studies, Latinx and Latin American studies, Asian and Asian American studies, Pacific Islander studies, right? Like there's so many identity-based areas of study, established disciplines, right? Where you can major and minor in them. We don't have all of those at John Jay, but we have some. These identity-born, social justice-born areas of study usually have people in them who are not just scholars, but scholar activists, right? So that our work, I consider myself to be a scholar activist, for example, and so I consider my work to have relevance not just for other academics or for policymakers alone, but for hopefully the greater social good. So what you're reading is theory and theory building. It's what we do. It's really hard because I think as a student you tend, and I did this when I was a student, to discount what is being learned. You say it's opinion, right? But what you're learning is research. And that means that you are scholars because you are getting all scholarly on this. So you don't say, in my opinion, it's, I learned XYZ, right? And so then I want you to continue on and do a little more reading and watching. So I want you to watch, and so I want you to read and watch this journalistic take on the fight to stop policing of gender identity. It gets called Walking While Woman. You might hear the phrase Walking While Trans, but really Walking While Woman is a more accurate way and a less transphobic way of talking about it. Because trans women are so often targeted by police just for existing, particularly Black trans women and Latina trans women, and other trans women of color. They are immediately assumed to be suspect just for existing and being out. And so they often report street harassment and police harassment, arrest, because there's an assumption that all trans women are sex workers, physical and sexual assault. So this idea of being targeted just because of your identity means that we are criminalizing that identity. And we're not supposed to criminalize identity. That's not what we do in a democratic, fair state. So I want you to read this journalistic take. And as you continue down, you'll get to a short video. It's about 12 minutes. Yeah, 12 minutes long. And it'll really just give you more insight and examples of how and why trans and gender non-binary people are so often, quote, systems involved, and the violence of being systems involved. Then I want you to read a short piece from legal scholar, trans legal scholar, Dean Spade. And it comes from a book called Prisons Will Not Protect You. Like, what? What does that even mean? Prisons will not protect you, right? There's an assumption. We're grown up and taught, we're socialized as we grow up to believe that prisons keep us safe from the bad people inside of them. Many scholars and activists argue that this isn't true. And so Dean Spade wrote the intro to this book, and he titled the piece, "Their Laws Will Never Make Us Safer." And so as he goes through this, as you read through this, I want you to think about who he means by they and us and what safer might mean. You'll see this connection between Black Lives Matter and transgender justice. And then, again, you'll see, 5 realities about violence and criminal punishment are helpful for analyzing the limitations of hate crime legislation, for preventing violence, or bringing justice and accountability. Lays them out one by one. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, right? So you're getting, really clear, detailed examples of what abolitionism could look like and why it's so important. Finally, I just want you to watch a few other short video clips. This one is actually about California. And so trans women share their stories from men's prison in California. It's about 11 minutes long. I also want you to read, it's a short read, and then watch this piece, again, journalistic piece, so it's not academic, it's journalist. This is about the gay wing of the LA Men's Central Jail. And what's interesting is that it's called the gay wing, but I feel like it's not just about sexuality, so I'll be interested to see what your take on it is. You can watch the video and read a little bit about it as well. Finally, I want you to watch the trailer for the documentary Major. Come on, Blackboard. Let's refresh. The trailer is here. So I want you to watch the trailer and then also scroll down and watch the 3 bonus features. I'm doing this because John Jay doesn't own this documentary, and so I'm not going to make you watch it. However, you do have the option of watching it with me and your peers, I promise it will work this time, for extra credit on October 8th. So if you want to come to that, we'll watch it together and then we'll talk about it after. It's really fierce. It's a really, I think, powerful and touching documentary. If you're somebody who really wants that extra credit, but you can't make it on that Friday, feel free to go ahead and reach out to me and we'll make arrangements. You'll have to watch it on your own, which means you'll have to purchase it on your own. And then complete a short, 1 to 2 page worksheet in response to it, since you won't be there with us to, sort of watch it together and debrief together. And again, that information for the extra credit is here. And Miss Major, I mean, she's famous. Like, she is very well known in activist circles in the U.S., in racial justice circles, trans justice circles, sex worker rights circles. Like, I've seen her speak before. She truly is a fierce advocate for justice. So after you complete these readings, the videos, and really think through what it means to be trans and gender non-binary in such a harshly gendered and narrowly gendered world, and being systems involved in the criminal justice system. And then I want you to complete your quick facts check-in. Click to launch here, or you can open it up here. Again, the quick facts check-in, this is a multiple attempts allowed. If you get something wrong, go back and fix it. This time there's only 3 questions because the third question actually includes a short, 6-minute video from Angela Davis, one of the authors that you're reading. And I want you to watch that video, think about the excerpt from the book, Are Prisons Obsolete, that she wrote, and then give me your answer. So that particular question is worth 2 points, and then the other 2 are worth 1 point, like usual. Again, the quick facts check-in is for you to check in with yourself and to make sure that you learned what you needed to learn, and to show me that you've learned what you needed to learn for this particular unit. Then there's something new. So twice this semester, you will complete a larger high-stakes, high-point assignment based on both the organization that you're studying and what you've been reading. So, in your classes, sometimes this gets called application. We want you to apply what you're reading and learning to your organization, and that shows a real depth of understanding. So I call this a being thoughtful assignment, because you have to be real thoughtful about which readings you want to use to analyze your organization, and also being really thoughtful and creative in your response. In previous semesters, students have done sort of a traditional essay response to the short questions I provide. Others do it in the form of poetry. A couple have done videos, so it's verbal. A couple have done a diary entry or journal entries, sort of pretending that they are someone who works at your organization, or someone who's a client at your organization, and then reflecting on it through those eyes, imagining what that experience would be like. So you can be really creative with this. It doesn't just have to be a standard sort of essay format. So click here, and the directions will come up. I want you to answer a question or 2, 1 at minimum, but if you need to, you can. Basically answering the question, what would our authors say about your organization? You can be creative in how you answer, right? You can create something. Heck, you can even sing it if you want to, right? What I'm asking you to do is choose from this list of questions, or if there's another question burning in your brain, feel free to reach out and let me know what it is, and we'll see about adding it on as an option. What I'm asking you to do is pick 1, maybe 2 if you need it, but I would just say 1 question to answer. Choose 2 readings from units 1 through 4. The readings can be from the same unit, but you need 2 different readings. I suggest that you make sure that one of them is a longer piece, because the shorter pieces don't necessarily give you enough to help you analyze your organization. I suggest having your syllabus nearby. That'll make it a little bit easier as you're trying to figure out who's where, whose reading is where. So, for example, for any of your organizations, right? How does your organization embody Bell Hooks' concept of visionary feminism? Note that Bell Hooks does not capitalize her name, so I would expect you to not capitalize her name in your writing and honor her, non-capitalization. Okay? What would Dean Spade say about the radical trans politics of your organization? This might be particularly useful for the Sylvia Rivera Law Project or the Audre Lorde Project, perhaps also Black and Pink. What would Kimberly Crenshaw be impressed by? Or would she be impressed by how your organization centers intersectional feminism, or not really, right? What would Callie Gross respond to in terms of the work of organizations like Survived and Punished, Girls for Gender Equity, Black and Pink, or SWAT Behind Bars, right? So there's options here. So, start jotting down notes. You're probably going to have to go through at least 3 edits of whatever it is, a poem, an essay, a video response, right? Start jotting down your notes, maybe storyboard it, like get creative, right? But again, this is a high points assignment, so it needs to be succinct, thorough, on point, right? Actually correct, and insightful. Make sure your quotes are properly cited. I hyperlink to how to make sure that you do that correctly. Upload it to Blackboard when you're done. You could also provide a hyperlink if it's a video or TikTok or something like that. So you'll come over here. You'll attach it. Or you'll give me, the shared link. And then you'll hit submit. Okay, that is it for unit number 4, our halfway mark. There's only 8 units in the class. We're halfway or close. Once you finish this, right, you'll be over halfway done with the class. So again, reflect on your progress so far. Take your time with the being thoughtful assignment. That will also help you reflect on your progress so far. If you're feeling behind, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're confused, or any other emotional state that you want to talk out with me, please reach out. I am here to meet with you one-on-one via Zoom or Skype or make a phone call, or we can simply just, talk via text or email. I appreciate your commitment to the class, and thank you for watching.